This video we're going to look at accelerated depreciation methods. We're going to look at sum of years digits, double declining balance switching to straight line, and MACRS. Sum of years digits is written in taking the depreciation in any year J is equal to the sum of years digits factors for that year times the difference between the investment and the salvage value. And the sum of years digits factor is equal to n minus j plus 1 over n times n plus 1 over 2. That's very complex, but it's really not that complex. The deal is that what you're doing is, for instance, if you have a life that's 5 years, the SOYD is equal to the sum of the year's digits is equal to 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, or 15. So you add all of those. And then the depreciation in the first year is 5/15, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. So that's really how the depreciation factor works. So let's look at an example. So these are the equations we're going to use, and it says what is the depreciation in each of the 3 years of the life of a widget tester that costs $13,000 and has a salvage value of $4,000. Use SOYD method. So what we're going to do is we're going to say the depreciation in the first year, using that equation, $13,000 minus $4,000 times 3 minus 1 plus 1 over 3 times 4 over 2. So this number is 3 plus 2 plus 1, which is 12 divided by 2 is 6. 3 plus 2 plus 1 is 6. And this is 3 minus 1 plus 1, so it's just 3/6 of that difference. So that is 4,500. The depreciation in the second year, we apply the equation, and it's 2/6, which is 3,000. And then in the third year, it's 1/6, which is 1,500. So you can see how that goes, counts down from 3, 2, 1, and then 6 is the addition of 3, 2, 1. Hope that makes sense. So then this is the kind of the cash flow we used before when we were looking at straight line depreciation. So we have the $3,000 in each year for depreciation. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to contrast that to the sum of years digit depreciation, which moves depreciation forward. And if you remember, that's better for cash flow, because it allows you to have cash flow sooner. So in this year, because you remember this particular example had increasing sales, so in this year we had 33, in the straight line method the cash flow was 3,300, 3,900, and 4,500. But when we use sum of years digits, we shift that forward a bit, so it's now 3,900 for every year. And I just wanted to recognize this, that we have this negative value for taxes. Usually taxes are not negative. The IRS never actually gives you back money. But what you can do is, if this project is part of a larger corporation, you can offset income in other places. So it's okay to consider a negative tax. The other thing on this particular representation is, in accounting, parentheses around numbers means that it's a negative number. So in this cash flow calculation, when we're using negative, we're going to be putting the parentheses on that number. So now we're going to look at double declining balance. Double declining balance looks at this alpha value, and in the case of a double declining balance factor, it's 2, which is the double. This value here, 2, is double over the life. So we take that value and we multiply it by the remaining book value. So let's go ahead and look at this calculation. Oh, and then the other thing is, book value always has to be greater than salvage value. So there's not a calculation in here necessary to check against salvage value, but we always need to check that out. So let's look at it at the same example. These are the equations we're going to use, and we're going to use the same example. So first of all, we want to calculate the book value in year 0, which is just equal to the investment amount, because no depreciation has been taken. The alpha value is also 2 over n, in this case 3, so we have a 2/3 alpha. So the depreciation in the first year is 13,000 times 2/3, which is 8710. That's going to be depreciation in the first year. Now we're going to calculate the book value, which brings it to 4290. So if we were going to go ahead and calculate the depreciation in the second year, we would take the remaining book value of 4290 and multiply it by 2/3. That gives us a depreciation of 2874. But the problem with that is that if we take 2874 minus the book value of 4290, we'll get below the $4,000 salvage value. So we need to limit the depreciation to 290. So you can see that this 290 will bring us down to the salvage value of 4,000. So we're going to limit the depreciation to that. And because we already are at salvage value, the depreciation in year 3 is just 0. So we have this depreciation schedule here, and we're going to go ahead and lay it out over these calculations here. And you can see the cash flow has actually now increased quite a bit in those years. In the first couple years. Remember, it was 3,900 before. So we're even farther, more and more front-loading this depreciation. So I was going to talk to you about double declining balance, switching to straight line, but I actually think I want to do a whole nother video on it. So I've cut that portion out of this video. It made this video a little longer. It made this video shorter. And anyway, I'll cover it in a different video. I just wanted to let you know that. The last method we're going to look at is actually the most important method. This method is the one that's dictated by the IRS, so it is generally the one that you will use when you're doing real valuations, and it's actually the easiest. So the depreciation in any one year, D of J, is equal to some MACRS percentage times the investment. And this is, you look up the particular period given the percentage given the recovery period. So this table, which is also included in your handout, has different recovery periods. And then, so if it's a 3-year recovery period, or a 4-year, or 7, or 10, and you can look, there's actually a way, usually they specify what's the recovery period, but this gives you then the percentage depreciation in each year. This assumes salvage is 0, so even though in the last example we had salvage at 4,000, we are definitely going to assume with MACRS that it's 0. And it also includes a half-year convention. Now what that means, if you look at this as a 3-year recovery period, but it has depreciation over 4 years. And that's because they assume that you get only half of the first year of depreciation, a full year in year 2, a full year in year 3, and then half a year in year 4. And they just shift it to July 1st so that this has this kind of depreciation schedule on there. So let's look at an example here. What is the depreciation in each of the 3 years of the life of a widget tester that costs $13,000 and has a value of $4,000? And it specifies the recovery period is 3 years. So we look at depreciation is 1, and we take 33.33% or 0.333 times 13,000, that's 4329. The second year we take 0.445 times that. And then third year is 14.8%. And then the fourth year, remember now we're going to have 4 years because of this half-year convention where everything's shifted a half year. So we get a depreciation in that year. So now I've added a 4th year to this example, which only has depreciation in it because we're assuming that this is still the 3-year life, but we have this 4-year depreciation. And then went ahead and I calculated the, these should be parentheses on there, sorry. I went ahead and calculated the cash flow, and that's what it looks like. So an overview is that we take an investment amount, we use that as a cash flow as a negative number, but we use, in order to calculate after-tax cash flow, we needed to know the depreciation methods to use. It will be specified in problems which depreciation method to use, and if it's not specified, then MACRS is always the best one. So we looked at these 4 kinds of depreciation methods: sum of years digits, double declining balance, switching to straight line,